Hi, it's Kieran here and welcome to another video, and yeah, this is a big one, so I've gone all out on the budget for the graphics with some Hollywood level production here, probably going to get a call up to the Oscars, and we're going to be looking at how to win races in online racing games, online esports games, because I think the popularity of racing games has exploded recently with the likes of the Not the F1 races, with Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Thibaut Courtois, and also the race in rFactor2, ACC, iRacing, and of course the granddaddy, the OG, Gran Turismo Sport with the FIA World Championship. So hopefully you find this video interesting. Got 8 tips, going to be really useful for beginners, but hopefully everyone can find it enjoyable and interesting too. And if you do like these videos, then please feel free to subscribe. I can't believe we're getting close to 100 subscribers, which is going to be mental. My first tip is, first few corners in any of these racing games, stick to the inside if possible. So have a look at all these cars on the outside, and they're all going to get squeezed out as I clip the apex. Now I'm looking to get desperately back on the inside for this corner. I find a gap and go for it. So we've gone from the back of the grid to 4th place. I'm actually the lowest ranked driver in this race. That's a pretty good result, and that's really going to help later in the race. Let's replay that and have a look in as we slow it down so you can see everyone gets squeezed out to the outside. Now I'm really looking for any kind of gap, any opening to get back through, and here it is. I'm going to take it ruthless up into 4th place, which is going to bring me on to my next tip, which is something I've really had to work on, and it's basically being patient. If you don't know a track or a car or both, then don't try and do some crazy moves and just get tangled up in a fight. You can be patient. It's a long race, these championship races. This is an FIA Nations Cup race, so it's 13 laps. You're going to have to pit at some point, and I don't really know this track to be honest. I don't know the car either. It's the first time I've driven it. Did 1 lap of qualifying, ended up at the back of the grid. So obviously I've got a lot to learn on this track, and the best way to do that is just to follow other people. So you can see here we're following the Porsche. I'm not going to try and go for a crazy overtake here, because I just need to get to grips with the track. That consistency is really going to help me later on in the race as we follow the Porsche around here. Now what I do know about this track is that it features what is known in the GT circles as the death chicane. It's coming up here and it will kill your race. Let's see if it's going to claim another victim, and yeah, the 2nd place driver is in the wall. RIP to him. So we picked up another position just by being patient. It's a long race, no need to get up caught in a crash. There's been loads of drivers, those are really quick drivers that have been caught up in that turn 1 incident, turn 2 I guess, and they'll all be at the back of the grid, way out of position and struggling to get back. So we're going to keep following the Porsche here, and we're going to do another information gathering lap. Let's speed it up. You can see I'm just behind the Porsche, but I'm not going for a move there. Not going to try anything silly here, go for a dive at this kind of hairpin. Just follow him through the S's. I'm getting more comfortable with the track, seeing where the limits are, and we're going to go into the hairpin now at the bottom of the track, because this is going to set us up to the death chicane. So let's see what happens. Basically every time you go into the chicane you kind of roll the dice. And in truth, I could go through this chicane 100 times and I've been it at least twice, probably more. As we follow the Porsche, the camouflage Porsche, through the first part of the chicane, and now the death part as he clips the wall. And is he going to be okay? No, he hits the wall, and a helicopter gets a great shot. Let's have a look at that helicopter shot again. Oh no, it's just a call to subscribe. So if you do like these videos, please do subscribe. It would be mental to get to 100 subscribers. That would be crazy. Never would have thought we would have done that. So we're going to follow the Mercedes now, and we're going to look at my next tip, which is when the time is right, you have to be absolutely ruthless. So here we're going for the lead now. We're just out of slipstream range, but within a couple of corners we'll be there. We'll talk more about slipstreams later. But essentially, when we get up close and personal for the first time and we have an opportunity, we just have to be ruthless and take it. It's a bit like in stealth games when you come up against some kind of enemy's guard. You have one opportunity to knock him out or whatever. If you take your time, you're just going to get dragged into a fight. And that's exactly what will happen here. If we don't do a clean overtake as soon as possible, we're going to get dragged into a fight, and we're going to fall into the clutch of the drivers behind us as we go through the death chicane, and he's tapped the brakes a few times. So we're a long way behind. But I've already made up my mind now. I'm going to go for this overtake. I'm not going in a slipstream here. I'm going for the inside line, and we brake just a little bit later, and we make it stick, park it a little bit on the apex, so he's got nowhere to go. So that was a great example of just coming up for the first time, catching him a little bit by surprise I think, and getting that position. You can see we are nose to tail here as we set the fastest lap of the race. I think that's about 2 seconds faster than my qualifying time, which shows just how much I've learned about this track, about this car. So those first couple of laps, those scouting laps, getting the information was absolutely crucial. And this is going to bring me on to my next tip, which is driving under pressure. And this is something that I had to work on again lots. It's something I think is really important for karting, which is the real world racing I do in real life, in the Club 100 Championships down at Daytona, other tracks around the UK. And driving under pressure is crucial. And I've really noticed that some drivers in some situations don't drive well under pressure. So you can see that in karting if they're always looking over their shoulder. You can see it in sim racing if drivers are being very defensive or taking erratic lines. And the key for me here is just focus. I'm not thinking about the car behind here at all. I'm just doing my own race and I'm taking my own lines. I'm trying to treat it like it's qualifying laps basically. Because if I can do a few qualifying laps and pull up some kind of gap, it's going to put the pressure back on him behind me to find something to try and catch up with me. Whereas I don't want to gift him by making a mistake here to the depth chicane or somewhere else, just an easy overtake. So it's a really interesting psychological battle. Now, something else I want to say about driving under pressure, and this is going to be controversial, so I'm going to preface it by saying I normally drive without the traction control on, almost without fail, because this is all really for me practicing for karting, and in karting you don't have traction control, and in the wet, throttle control is just absolutely key. But in this race, because I don't know the track really, because I definitely don't know the car, and I'm worried about snap oversteer on the exit of some of these slow hairpins, I've put the traction control on. It's not a crime. I think it's just the fastest way and most consistent way for me to win this race. So that's what I've done. But I would recommend, if you're learning how to drive these cars in sim racing, try and do it without the traction control on. But if it comes to a race and you're worried about getting called out by some snap oversteer, by spinning it, by throwing it all away, then there's nothing wrong with putting the traction control on for that race, in my opinion. But let me know in the comments if you think that's heresy. Right, this next tip is fuel saving. So as we went over the start finish line for this lap, we had less than 1 lap of fuel remaining. So we have to fuel save to get around. And my aim in most of these races, championship races where there's fuel saving, where you need to go into the pits, is to get into the pits with 0 fuel remaining, which can be quite stressful and can be quite hard to time. So at the moment we're in fuel map 2, but I don't think fuel map 2 is going to cut it. I think we're going to run out of fuel before we get to the pits, which would be the most frustrating way to lose this race, aside from binning it at the death chicane. So at some point we're going to have to go down some more fuel maps, and we're going to do that after the death chicane. I'm not too worried here if I get overtaken, to be honest. My priority now is getting to the pits. So let's have a look at the fuel map. We're going to bring it up here on the right hand side. So we've got 0.1 laps remaining as we come into the last corner. This is probably going to dip down to 0.0, so we're going to be running on absolute fumes. But I think right about now we're going to make it. We're on fuel map 5. It's just about getting to the pits, and we've timed this perfectly. So we hit the pits with 0 laps remaining on the fuel. Perfect. My next tip: when you have these championship races and sim racing and you have to pit, use the time to refocus. Use the time to think about what you're going to do in the next part of your stint. It's a really rare opportunity to have however many seconds just to sit and not have to drive the car, and you can think. So, you know, it's a really small tip, I guess, but actually something I do on a regular basis. Now, we've lost a couple of places in the pits. This guy behind, in front of us now, he must not have changed the tyres. I changed the tyres in that pit stop because I noticed that I was losing a little bit of grip, and we're about halfway through this race, a little bit over halfway, and I didn't fancy being on the last couple of laps with those old set of tyres. So I changed my tyres. It's a very long way of saying I changed my tyres, but that's what I did. The guy in front probably hasn't, so let's see if that's going to cost him. So we're going to follow him through here. And we've also back down to 6th place now from first, so I don't know how many of those drivers pitted and didn't change tyres, or just haven't pitted yet, but we'll find out probably this lap here. As we go through the death chicane, what's going to happen here as he takes a massive lift, so we're going to be in a slipstream. He goes very defensive, which is often a good move here. You can cover that line actually by going defensive, but I've just got so much of an overspeed, we're going to breeze straight past him as some drivers dive into the pits. So top 3 into the pits. So we've got the Mercedes ahead now. He's 3 seconds ahead, but he's going to be on old tyres, so the race is on. So let's see what we can do. And again, I'm trying to focus on the track ahead, not worrying too much about the guy behind, just checking where he is. Because if I waste too much time defending here, I'm just not going to catch up again in the first place. That's the crux of it. So I just have to look forward and go for it. And if the guy behind me is faster than me, then fair play to him and he can try and get past me. As we take a nice scenic shot here, as we go through this flat out corner. Am I going to do a little lift? Yeah, a little lift here just to play it safe. And there's a bit of contact actually, so he's letting me know that he's behind me, but nothing to worry about. There's another car behind him, so if I get drawn into this battle, I can risk going down to 4th place, which is not great. So we're going to zoom forward here as the car behind me is still on my tail, and we go through the death chicane, and he drops a long way behind, and I'm catching up now with the car in front. So just by that period of focus, I've now kind of flipped the script a little bit, and I'm now racing for 1st place, and the 2 guys behind me are battling for 3rd and 4th. So this is great for me, and we're going to try and go for the win now. So he's going to be on used tyres. So again, time to be ruthless. We talked about it before. Stealth. First opportunity to go by, and I'm going to take it. Going to be a little bit later on the brakes, and fair play to him. He doesn't try and turn in on me. And to be honest with you, I think that was the key moment in this race, because if I don't make that move there, if I don't make it stick, and I end up behind this guy, and he's on used tyres, he's all over the track, I end up all over the track, destroying my tyres as well, just fall back into the clutch of the 2 drivers behind. You can see that they're not too far away, and it ends up being a really messy battle where you don't really know if you're going to be 1st or you're going to be 4th. So that was just such a critical moment, and I knew that I had to pass them and I had to make the move stick. So it's about picking battles. Right, we're going on to my last tip now. So if you end up in this position, if you're 1st in the race, maybe you're on YouTube, maybe you're on national TV or whatever, who knows where esports is going to go, then it's about not bottling it. And I have the same thing in kart races when I'm out front as well. The pressure on not bottling it can just be huge. And I find it can get to you, you start second guessing things. Golf players talk about it a lot, where if you start thinking about your golf swing, I don't play golf, I prefer to race, but golf players say if you start thinking about your golf swing, then you just completely mess it up. It's the same thing here. If you start overthinking how you're going to approach corners, then you just won't take them right. You might be harsh from the brakes, you might be later or too early on the throttle. So the best thing is to try and relax, but it's just really difficult now when you know the win is on the line. So we skip forward there to the last lap. There was some seamless editing, and we're going to take the win in this FIA Nations Cup race. So it wasn't an easy race. We didn't even get the fastest lap in the end. Someone picked us fast laps. There were some fast drivers in the split, but there were some key moments. There was avoiding the turn 1 chaos. There was a patience after that to learn the track, and then being ruthless when we needed to get to 1st place. Then we needed to fuel save when we got into pits with 0% fuel remaining. We took the time in the pits to refocus, came back out. Again, we had to be ruthless to get past 2 more drivers, and then we didn't bottle it, and we got away with the win. So we were the lowest ranked driver. We were 19th ranked in this race, and we take home 125 points. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm so happy that esports sim racing is all coming to the fore with these not the F1 races, the races in rFactor2, GT Sports, FIA World Championships. I love sim racing. I love racing in real life. I love playing games. So please ask any questions you have in the comments, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. But until then, I'll see you next time.